And we're going to talk a lot about your teaching today because we're going to talk about the first NXT takeover. Now, not to be confused with Takeover Arrival. This is Takeover One. Me and Mr. Regal were a little confused this week looking over it. I actually
Yes.
watched Arrival as well, which was fantastic. But with Takeover One, which of course took place in 2014 in May. It was I believe the second live broadcast using the WWE network. Uh, as a trainer, as a scout, as your position in NXT, when did you start kind of hearing that you're going to be doing these live events for this developmental program that you had?
This is where you're going to have to help me. My time in NXT was incredible, and I'm having the same kind of thing now with being in AEW. There's only one problem with both of those times of my life. They're both incredible, but the time is going by so quickly, and the time went by in WWE so quickly. 21 years there, and then what was it? Nearly, was it 10 years or more with WWE in the starting off in FCW and then NXT and so forth and so forth. So much went on so quickly in so few years. And again, I think people take it for granted. But if you go back and look what we all accomplished there in the short period of time that was from the first takeover, we ended up doing 36 of them. Right, 36 of them, and every one of them was well received, more than well received, and they hold up. And watching the original takeovers, it holds up, right? So they're all going to hold up, and I know that they'll hold the test of time.
And the interesting thing about Takeover One and the early takeovers, they don't just hold up. They're kind of these historical things. When you
Yes,
see Charlotte, Charlotte Flair, just this newbie to the business who bears very little resemblance to the Charlotte we have now, style-wise, except for the talent that you saw. We're
incredible
seeing
talent. Yes,
we're seeing this a lot of legendary things go on, history going on with
unbelievable.
Takeover One.
Just watching it last night, I watched it again last night, so I had it fresh on my mind, and it's like the opening match, and you watching the people that came out
The
on the
Rosebuds.
opening match, the Rosebuds,
Yeah, you saw Braun Strowman too, huh?
and you're seeing Braun Strowman, and you're seeing Becky Lynch,
Yes, sir.
and I saw, I believe is part of this podcast family now, Ryan Katz, and it's Becky Lynch wasn't even on the roster, like she was just getting a foot in the door there, but she seems like she's been around forever. But how long ago was it? What year was that? I didn't make a note of the year.
It was
Because
2014. It was
2014, so it's
over
only
8 years ago.
but it's only 8 years ago.
It's true.
And in 8 years, we did 36 takeovers, and they finished last year. And that's it. And then in between these takeovers, there was the Cruiserweight Classic, there was 2 Mae Youngs, there was all these the UK stuff, and the it's mind numbing.
That's an
When you
interesting
look,
point you make. We don't think about how consolidated all that stuff was. Someone,
yes,
you know, I would say my son and my run as wrestling fans took place during the NXT, revival. And
okay,
so we were there at all the Brooklyns. We were there in
right.
Dallas. We were at San Jose. But when you think about this magic, I'm going to say magical time of
And it
NXT,
was a magical time.
man,
It
you
was
guys did do a lot. I can imagine you can't remember the specific
and it's
events
not
because so much went on.
once we start talking about it, to think that obviously that's all going to come back, but I just cannot get my head around that was 8 years ago, because there was so much happened. It's gone so quickly, and you think about it. What was it? The last takeover was last year.
Yeah, last year, I believe.
Yeah. So really, it was only 7 years, and from 2020 we're in COVID. So you've actually got what 5.5, 6 years where all this incredible stuff took place. 5.5 years, and it went like that for me. It just went so quickly. I'm always telling people to make the most of every opportunity in this and that in this job and in life, believe me, because it goes so quickly. But I wished I'd really paid more attention, and I was paying as much attention as possible because I was involved in everything. But because you're involved in everything, there's still things that you're not actually sometimes taking a step back and going, wow, what? And I used, and I'm going to sound a bit silly now, but I used to do that all the time. I used to go, wow, how have we got here so quickly? How is this happening? How is that happening? How have we managed to do that? And then it's all over and it's gone. So
Are you
another
being
lesson today: make the most of every second you've got on this earth,
are
because
you
if
being oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
please, it's just that thing of it's gone by so quickly, and there was so much went on. And look at this. We talked about that Becky Lynch was one of the Rosebuds, and look what Becky's gone on to do.
Mm,
Right, Becky Lynch has become a superstar. Right, look at the main event. Right, the main event last in that show was Pac, as he is known now, Adrian Neville against
mhm,
TJ Wills, Tyson Kidd. Tyson, unfortunately, is no longer in wrestling and seems to be, unfortunately, out of it for a lot longer than he should have ever, because he was and is as good as anybody, right? That was a main event that will stand up forever for the test of time. Adrian Neville has not worked there in the WWE for the last 3 or more years,
mhm.
right? But it's just it was a real strange thing for me to watch. But so many feelings I'm getting that I've had this. I was so fortunate to be a part of all of that and to be a part of everything that was going on at the time. But it's moved on so quickly, and now we're going back and looking at this like it's a nostalgic thing.
Crazy, huh?
But it's 8 years ago. It's not 30 years ago, which is going to be another different thing with this show. All these takeovers, if we do the 36 over the next whatever amount of time, we're going to look back at them as nostalgic,
Mhm.
because they will stand the test of time forever.
I know
And
we certainly, my son and I certainly think of these NXT takeovers as nostalgic. Like
right,
it's remember that. Remember what a good time it was because I mean, you were there, you know how
yes,
busy you were, but
yeah,
man, it was like nothing I'd ever seen in professional wrestling before as a 30-year fan.
right. Well, that's for people to make their own minds up, but I was there and I thought it was the best time of my career. And I was not, I, I, I think if I remember rightly, not long after that, I had my first neck surgery. If I'm, and then I became the GM, if I'm remembering correctly, because I was still doing commentary. Well, after my first neck surgery was when I was made GM. I came back after the neck surgery, and that's when I got, and I was GM for what, 7 years, suppose. I think so.
One thing about NXT, I think that drew us all in, and something I believe AEW has really kind of captured as well is that crowd. NXT Full Sail crowd had this ability because it was small to be intimate, but also had this ability to really push people and get them over, as they say. It was
Yes.
a very unique, the best way I could describe it, it was like a PG ECW crowd. Like everybody is in on everything. Um, they're cheering the good guys, they're booing the bad guys. They're really helping everybody. It's a very unusual crowd at that time, wasn't it?
It was, and the one thing that it was a great crowd. Crowd made everything. The whole of NXT was made by the crowd, whether it was the people who were kind enough to turn up for the tapings at Full Sail, to the events such as Takeover, Rival, Takeover. They made everything, but also they weren't a not. Let's How can I put this? This crowd weren't just being polite and cheering. You know, they were.
Yeah.
You had to earn their trust. The audience weren't just they were. It wasn't just, oh, we're NXT. We're gonna just cheer because we like the people here. You had to give them the talent had to give them the goods, and then they reacted. Um, so the audience were a great audience that built up, but it was also the talent they weren't doing it just out of sympathy,
Right.
reacting that way. They were because they were seeing um, incredible people evolve in front of them, and they saw them from the beginning a lot of the time. But they took to who they took to, and some people they didn't. And then it but you had to earn your keep with that crowd, and if you weren't, you keep with that crowd. They stayed with you, and they were a fantastic audience. Yeah.